Well, hello, hello, hello. Sick of me yet? Right now, we're going to be looking at adding the MCM menu to it. I was tossing up between working on the quest picker, which we're looking at the moment, to generate the quests as we go through, or whether I'd add the MCM menu. And what I sort of thought was, some of the quest stuff's going to rely on getting options that players have picked, so it actually makes sense to add the MCM menu so I can reference those options as I create the picker. So I think I have to create the MCM menu first. I'm going to simplify this process only in terms of I'm just going to create a very simple menu, and the rest of it is documented to a degree. This is probably the one that confounded me the most because I had some things wrong. But that's okay. You're watching this video and we can skip all of those problems. So the first thing you need to know, all right, is in the project, in the properties, under debug, if you don't have now, if you decided earlier on to remove Harmony and Butterlib and a UI extender and MB option screen, if you don't have them now, you will crash every time you try to debug because you're calling code that does not have its requirements. Okay, so this is the step one. Make sure that here in your command line arguments you have Harmony, Butterlib, UI Extender X, and MB option screen, and that these are all installed in your instance of Bannerlord. All right, that's step one. Step two, ensure you properly reference. Okay, ensure you properly reference MCM4. So I'm going to add that reference right now. And where is that reference, you might ask? Well, geez, you're asking exactly what I'm going through in this video. Here we are. The MCM screen. And you can see we've got all of this code. What we want is mcmv4.dll. You can use the other ones if that's what you're familiar with or like, but I'm using and coding for mcmv4, which is the latest MCM mod configuration menu. All right, good. Back to Visual Studio. Add your reference in by referring to that. So it's in the MB option screen, bin, Win64 shipping client, you know, where all your other references sort of were sitting. Let me just find that one real quick. It's only going to take me half a mo. Okay on that. I'm not going to show you the screen in the Visual Studio one. You know what to do from the first videos. You should know how to add a reference in Visual Studio. You can see it's there now, MCMV4. And we can start referring to the code in that. We don't have to add the other ones in. So don't bother with adding in Harmony and Bannerlib and Butterlib and UI Extender if you don't know that you need them. All right, you don't have to have them for this. MCM will handle all that for you. I have used the version, the full version, not the reference version. If you use the reference version, you have to include it in your project. There's probably some other small changes that you need to make, but just to be clear, I have referenced the downloadable player installed version that I will not distribute. I will just require everybody who wants to use my mod to have that fully standalone mod. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you may have to refer back to the documentation, but to put it simply, the version I have downloaded is just the one on the Nexus, the mod configuration menu, and I've just literally gone straight to its MCMV4 and picked it. You can do that, and everything that I say from here on out will make sense. If you want to do something different, you might have to go and look at the documentation. Cool. So we've made sure that we have the mods in our launch for the debugging. We've made sure that we have it referenced in our project, and now we need to go back to our My Sub module because we're going to be adding a couple of things in here. Once again, I'll be cheating and referring to my earlier work and relentlessly plugging my mod. So we're going to add in some settings here. So this is a module folder name and a mod name. Pretty simple stuff. No need to get worked up about these. It's just going to be exactly what you think it is. The name of your mod, which is Dankness Quests. Mod name. It's also going to be Dankness Quests. And you'll see that that will match up to the Windows Explorer names. So that's cool. Those two things need to be added in there. And we also need to add in how we're going to load this. Now, under the documentation, the earliest point that you can refer to the mod configuration menu is, wait for it, here. All right. Protect the override void on before initial module screen set as root. Okay. So this is basically right before the first screen, which I imagine is the the screen that shows you the menu, like loading and continuing your campaign. I'm not entirely sure, but I think that's what it is. Now, we can call this whatever we want. We can put it in... We're going to be creating a new file now, so... do I want it as a model? Doesn't make sense as a model. It's more of a settings. So why don't I just go ahead and create a new folder called settings. Yeah, that'll do. That'll be fine. Part of the namespace, and then we'll just add a new class. Again, you're not seeing any of this in the video, but you know how to do this. So right-clicking on settings, or right-clicking the project to add the folder, right-click on the settings folder to add the class. So you add in a class. I'm just going to call this MCM config. See, I don't want to conflict with any other class names or make it not work. So what I might just say is menu config and leave it at that. Good. All right. So again, I'll be cheating because I know the code works. And you could cheat by either going to the code base or copying it off the video. So basically, we're all cheats here. Excellent. So we need to make it disposable. All right. And now we need to create our instance of our class. So let's just grab that. That doesn't do it. That just refers to the variable. Also, we need to make sure that we continue to change our names so that it makes sense. And where's our instance definition? Here we are. Fantastic. Again, just make it all the same. Excellent. Let's make sure that we have the ability to run an instance of the mod configuration menu. We do need to, you can see down the bottom, we got this warning that we're not implementing dispose. Now, dispose was quite simple for me. Let me just finish some of this. Alrighty, there we are. And then there is, technically, you could have, like, what do we have here? Nothing yet. Technically in here, I'm just going to put this for a second. Maybe we're not necessarily going to turn it on, but we could unregister all of our settings if that's what we wanted to do. Alrighty. And why does it think we have that name? Where is it finding it? Oh, I know, because I never changed this, because I didn't have it at the time. There we go. I'll make some excuses and everybody will believe me. It's not because I'm bad. It's called, well, we need to reference our new settings anyway. So S comes after M. Dot settings. There we go. We'll refer to it. And we've called it menu config. And the settings is the class that I called because I think that was based off of the documentation, but you can call that anything. So I think I'll stay with settings. It does make sense to me that it would be called that. And that's how it's going to instantiate it. So that's cool. We can jump out of my submodule again. And as I've said before, we don't need to go back in there again. Let's jump through now. I'm just trying to make sure that I haven't missed anything that's going to like throw out more errors later. Doesn't have a definition for settings. That's perfectly fine. I'm going to pull the whole code through just because it's easier to delete than, you know, add in stuff you might have accidentally missed. Alrighty, here we go. Now, you'll notice that we're getting errors because we never used the MCM layers that we need. So let's pull in the ones that we're definitely going to need. Alrighty. What are we missing? All of our actual variables. That's fine. Don't need to care about those for now. Bare builder, base settings builder, set format XML, set the folder name. See, this is why we had that variables in submodule. That's what this is referring to. And we're going to create a group. Where's the first group end? That's the first group. We don't need any more groups after that. I can add all these in later, but for right now, it'll end up getting rid of a lot of errors for me. So is that how I want to do it? Too many. Yep, good. Excellent. We can even, make it a little prettier by just putting them all in the same row. Excellent. So this is general settings, and the first setting that we should probably add. Oh, why is it saying that? Feature nullable reference types is not available in C# 7.3. Please use language version 8 or greater. Okay, I didn't want to really show this off. That's annoying. All right, well, because we're doing a tutorial, we'll go and sort that out. The way to sort that out is to go into your Explorer. So you'll have to bear with me for just a minute. It's not going to take forever. If I've remembered this correctly, this is how to fix it. Okay, so with that little hiccup out of the way, we'll need to go into our project file, and we will open that with Notepad++, or whatever you want. Notepad will work as well. Don't need any special tools for that. Just open it up in a tool that you are used to. Alrighty, and I'll swipe across to that now. We've got the Dankness quests open there, and what you'll see is, where is it? These property groups. So what we can do is just add a new property group here. And I've included the Lang version 8, but I also put the nullable context options as enable in that property group. And that will sort it out. So basically it's just that in there, put it in as a new property group, and then save that. And what we're going to have to do is just reload our solution. So obviously that's going to be awkward, but that's okay. Dankness has been modified. Yeah, we'll just say reload. Give me a second here. We'll see if that all sorts itself out. Yeah, it does. Good. Well, we can swap back in there now and continue on. It detected that I had changed the project, and now we don't have those errors anymore. So happy days. Happy days. But I do need to open up my other project again, because I thought that I wouldn't. I thought a thing that wasn't. There you go. Where's our global settings? I do need them. It's funny, I can't see it. It's got to be there. There it is. What a goose. Alright. So we'll go in here and we'll add our global settings. We'll put that in there, and then that should get rid of the error there. Type or namespace iDisposable couldn't be found. Yeah, that's because we're missing a reference. Essentially, I think we're missing the system reference. When I say I think. There we are. Override cost, yet none of that exists because we never cared about it. I don't need it for now. The only setting we must have is the one that I haven't referenced, this debugging enabled bit. So I do need a bool for debugging enabled. Alrighty, so we'll add that in here. I think we can keep... No, we do. We need it to be accessible externally, of course. Public bool, debugging enabled. That's fine. And that will be a bool in here. So we'll get rid of the override cost default and we'll change that to be our debugging enabled. Now, this is just a name for our little button, I guess you could call it. This is like, you can think of this as a button name. So we could call it debugging enabled 1. We could call it debugging enabled because we're not going to call any of our other buttons debugging enabled. But if you had a bunch of different buttons, you would not name any the same. So again, this has to be a unique field across the entirety of your MCM. So debugging enabled, I'm not going to name anything else that I'm happy to leave it there. So we'll say enable debug messages. All right. So that's fine. And we don't need to modify any of the rest of this. You can copy this code in. You can grab it from my projects or any of those other, from the documentation even. This will be just copy and pastable, really. Debugging enabled, we'll get rid of that. Override cost into debugging enabled. Effectively what this is doing is it's building a menu item that you can tick in the game, and then it saves it and loads it as you edit it or as the game loads, so that it always has a value sitting in debugging enabled. Set hint text, set own cost, and we need to change that to be enable debug messages without capitals this time, because why not? Set require restart. You shouldn't have to restart for this. There's no reason why you can't just turn on debugging mid-game. This integer here, have we got anything yet that needs an integer? First run done is a bool, and that's a bit awkward. First run done was it's a bit weird. I'll get into it now, I guess. However, so the thing you need to remember is that these aren't being saved when you change it. This only saves when you're in the menu and go OK, and then it saves it then. So we'll just say first run done. We'll declare it. We'll get ready to start with it. But this is an option, and we'll add another bool in here. So to add another bool, we'll just copy this code. So we'll add that in. All right. Again, must be unique. So we'll say first run done. And why don't I get real complicated for a second here? And when I say real complicated, I mean not really that complicated, but you know. And we will put in a new group. So here we'll say dot create group. All right, and this will be called 2. We don't really want it to be 2. Why don't we call it 9? Overall, and overall seems a bit weird. All we want to do is have it as like a system setting. Yep, just means we can edit it later. Technically, I could just copy the group up there, and I'm sort of tempted to do it, but I can also type because group builder, group, wow. Builder, we don't need that. I was wrong. We do actually need that. Now, remember, this is opening up our brackets, and so in here, then we can put our add bool that we just did for first run done. So we'll take it out of here. If this isn't making sense or I'm going too fast, you might have to just replay the video to sort of watch what's going on here, unfortunately. Is that correct? Have I got enough there? Got the double for that one and that one. Yep. And yep. And then this one closes off the group declaration. Excellent. So what we've done is we've created one group called General Settings, and we've created a second group called System Settings, and that one's going to be at the bottom. So as I add new groups in here for different settings from 1 through to 9, and if it goes higher, I just have to change this number. But it is in alphabetical order in MCM. So just bear that in mind. That's why I'm numbering them, because otherwise, in this case, S is after G, so they would still be in order. But if I had another one in there called, if I wanted my second option to be, additions and multiplication, because that's normal, then it would put additions right at the top. So I need to have 1 and then 2 and then 3, etc. Or any other way of alphabetizing. It's a good word. Alrighty. So this here is still giving us errors because we've got quest days and other bits and pieces that we didn't need. So this is an integer. Right now I don't need it to hold any integers, but I suppose I could technically. Things to remember is this is the start and this is the end if you're going to have an integer setting. So the highest number that they could have right now is 200, but I could have any int 32 in here, which is probably like, is it 40 something billion? How high does an int go? There's a great question for you to go and answer in your own time. Get rid of that. I don't need an integer right now, so I'm going to not have an integer right now. What? Don't do that. Sometimes the quickest way is not the fastest. Perform first time setup is not a code that exists, which is fine. What this is it just sets defaults. So what I did is for it loads and gets the settings and checks and will change my first time setup. Well, with my first run done, right? So if it isn't the first time, if somebody has changed a variable, it's going to save this as done, right? If they have, it's going to, if they go in and change anything and hit the save button, at that point, it's actually going to save first run as true and save it in. So when it loads next time, that won't fire. It won't do the perform first time setup. But basically, if no one ever modifies the mod, like let's say they don't realize that these settings ever exist, that's fine. They'll just be playing the same game the whole time with the defaults that I put in. And so that's why this exists as a class perform first time setup. So I just add that in, and it's at the end, right? Don't put it in the beginning or it'll override all of the settings that you're supposed to have loaded with the game. Possibly. No guarantees. I don't know what it would do then, but I didn't feel like taking a risk. So yeah, I put it at the end so that I first let it have a go, see if it has anything, and then I load it in. So because this happens when the game starts, right, before that first menu, even if before they even get into the game they decide to go and change the settings, it's going to have pre-filled the settings for them, and they can just edit what they want rather than everything being just set to this first value here, like, well, I've changed it now, haven't I? I've gotten rid of it, but, you know, being set to the default value. So if I set it, so for example, in here, I actually do want to set the first run done business down here to be true. I have no idea why I referenced it like that. It's a bit odd. Pretend that never happened. But yeah, so we're setting that in there. Maybe I had perform first time setup elsewhere to start with. Yeah, that's exactly what I did, and I've moved it in here later. But this is an MCM menu that will work. I could, I guess, show it off in the game. I have a Bannerlord game instance now. I'll just check off on the code. There's no errors, but that doesn't necessarily mean everything works. Clean it up a little. We don't need extra space. Yep, that's all fine. I do like an extra space between stuff that's going to run. Yeah, don't need this dispose method. I'm still going to leave it blank. At what point am I disposing of this when I still want a menu? Oh yeah, in the settings, if you go to the documentation, this is how theirs looks. Let me just fix that up for a second. Yeah, this is how theirs looks. Don't do that. I don't know why that is the documented version, and I am a little mad about it. I won't try and pretend. It doesn't work for obvious reasons. Anyway, I suppose it's example code. You're supposed to have enough coding knowledge to know your way around it, which, I mean, obviously I've figured it out, but man, it's like, why is my stuff not working? And you go through and you're like, yep, everything. And you're stepping through the code and you're like, yep, it's adding everything. Gets to here, fine. You look at your global settings that you built and you're like, yep, fine. Pass that in and it works. And you're like, okay. So it's not what I did. And then you pass the register in and it works. And you're like, okay. And then unregister works. And you're like, everything here works. No errors, no problems. Not even like a message and everything's filled out. Like, it's perfect. Yeah, no, don't unregister after you register. It'll clear it'll clear your menu. That little rant done. This should be done. So you basically, that's how you add an MCM menu. And then go look at either the examples, the documentation examples, or you could go and I'll plug my Noble Killer mod again. Like, you can go and have a look at that. Don't leave settings like this, which then you see and you're like, well, I'm glad I saw that because otherwise it'd be weird. What's this called? Dankness quests. There we are. We obviously don't want to call it assassination options. We'll call it Dankness quest options. And, what the hey, let's go and look at it in the game. Alrighty, let me switch over the video to the Bannerlord. Alrighty, I'll just get the sound on because there's no reason to hide this one. Excellent. Now, I'm just going to continue the campaign because this is the same code, just with an MCM menu. But I don't even have to, actually, because it should be in here. Dankness quest options. So we can see here, I didn't rename the enable debug messages from the system settings, so it looks like I've done the same setting twice, which when you copy and paste, is exactly what you're expecting. But again, if I was to save one of these and not save the other ones, let's say I save that one, so that's first time done, that'll actually save it by itself. So I'll do that instead. So I'll do, and what that should do is when we come back in here, it should actually save that one. I'm actually not sure why that wasn't already refilled. So I've got a bug somewhere, and I think I know where the bug is because I never changed, because I copied and pasted this. This is what bug testing's for. Nothing's going to happen. So let's jump back to Visual Studio, and we'll look at why I did everything wrong. Why I did everything wrong is because I didn't put my first run done in as this field, which is obviously how the code is going to know that it's not this other thing. I'll also rename this one, and I'll say first run done. What I can also do is change it so we know that it's checking the first run done, but the user doesn't know. So we can change this to actually say reset to defaults. Basically, if you've messed up somewhere and you don't like how you've done it and you can't remember how I had it, this will let you reset all of these, reset all settings to initial state. All right, there we go. And now we've got the reset to defaults and we're checking this first run done thing. So we'll still have it in the code and we can read it and see what it's doing. But the user will just think that it's a reset to defaults button. If they untick it and save it, then it'll happen all happy days. And yeah. Now that doesn't see, I always try to code for the lowest common denominator. Let's go back in and see how we go. Alrighty. So, obviously I made a mistake. I'll fix my mistake. Mistakes happen. Don't feel bad about them. Even if you're putting them on the internet for the whole world to see. At the end of the day, you're the only one making your mistakes. There's a mod to get rid of that intro screen, but yeah. Mod options, Dankness quest options. Here we are. System settings, unticked reset defaults. So this is worked now, and that's been saved in there. So when I say enable debug messages and I say done, and I go back in and reload it, it's all done, and that will persist between reloading the game, and that's also going to exist in the game when you go to your mod configuration menu. Yeah, that's it. You've created a menu and it's working and you know how to do it, and we're all happy here. If I've missed anything, do throw me a comment below, because I think this should be this is one of the most contained videos so far that shows you from where to go, how to get the thing working. So yeah, I got that terrible feeling that it was so easy that I've forgotten something. But anyway, thanks for watching.